started on a grassroots level with some folks in the community that really wanted to see an alternative to the traditional system in terms of supporting people with mental distress. And this group of people were really advocating to see a place that was run for and by people who have experiences of mental distress. And they worked very hard around that. And one of those individuals was actually a gentleman named Krasman. And now, unfortunately, before the centre came about, he did take his life. So a short time after, when the centre got some funding and was able to get established, they decided it would be fitting to name the centre in his honour, because he always said that having such a place would have really helped him in his recovery. So our long name is the Krasman Memorial Centre for Community Mental Health, and the shorter version would be the Krasman Centre. And so here we are, 16 years or so later. We're really known for our drop-in centre, so we have a location in Richmond Hill that's open 6 days a week, and to keep some alternative hours too. We have an evening time on Thursday nights that we're open till 9, which people really appreciate. And we also have a satellite location in Alliston in South Simcoe. And we're happy to have a partnership with an organization called Loft Crosslinks that's offering a one-day drop-in here in Newmarket, the town we're in today. But since that, we really developed some other programs, and so we're a much sort of broader scope than just the drop-in. So we have a family support program offering groups for family members and caregivers to help them around their own self-care and learning around how to best support their loved one. We also have an application support worker program, so one of our staff supports people with applying for ODSP, which can be a very difficult process to walk through, so she walks them through that process. We also have our Warm Line and Peer Crisis Support Service, which is a 24/7 peer support-based phone line. And we also have what's very exciting in more recent times is our Peer Navigator program, which we have peer support workers in 2 hospital emergency departments, providing that non-clinical, more emotional support to folks who are in emergency departments for mental health, addictions, or homelessness. And I think that's the whole bit. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Susan. So my second question here is just for both of you, and it's could you share a few ideas on how peer support services could be expanded at the Krasman Centre and possibly around the world? Perhaps you could begin with your response, Mary?
Well, in order to expand peer support services, we need money. Now, money is not everything, but in my talk today I was talking about what if 99% of people had access to peer support instead of the 5% that do now? And in order to take it from 5% to 99%, there would have to be a huge investment. And in a system where there's finite resources, you can only do that. If there's no new resources coming into that system, the only way to do that is to take some money out of some other part of the system. And this is where the vested interests in the status quo in the health system and mental health make it very difficult for this to happen. And I was suggesting that, the Queen Street Centre that was set up, that was rebuilt several years ago, that would have cost billions of dollars, and it cost billions to keep going. And, this is a very resource-hungry type of service provision. Those sorts of services, I think in Ontario, they gobble up about over 90% of the mental health budget. So it's going to be really, really difficult to to turn peer support into a core kind of response that someone could have access to when they came into a mental health service. Now, there are other ways of doing it, of course. I mean, one way that we have explored in New Zealand is that we have quite a big workforce of generic community support workers. And quite often what managers do is they say, well, when a support worker resigns, they're going to create a new position for a peer support worker. And I think that could be a way to go, is when other positions resign, replace them with peer support workers. But it is a huge challenge, and the vested interests in the kind of the medical establishment are enormous, and they're very powerful.
For sure.
And they're very well funded, even though they don't think they are. Yeah.
I'm very interested in exploring the potential for social enterprise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
There could be some opportunities there that we're just sort of starting to think about. I know, Mary, you've had some experience with that as well, so there's the potential there.
Yeah. So having a social enterprise where people with lived experience run their own business, yeah. I mean, I think that has potential. I think it's a bit like peer support and a social enterprise thing. It's really great for people, but we don't want everyone who goes through the mental health system to think their only chance at getting a job of being a peer support worker or going into a social enterprise either. So I think that we do need to be mindful that if we're thinking about employment, we need to think about the open labour market or the other parts of the labour market, as well as jobs within the kind of peer support social enterprise space. So that's my only caution about that. And I think, but I think that social enterprises do have a real place. It's a hard way to make a living. I mean, and I know that a lot of social enterprises are subsidised, but if you're actually trying to run a business, it's as opposed to getting grants from the government, it's actually quite a hard way to make a living, and you have to have sets of skills that are different to the kinds of skills you need to get grants. So yeah, I think social enterprises are great, but there's a few caveats about that.
That's interesting. At the end of the day, you talked quite a bit about looking at peer support like through a well-being or lens. And do you see any potential in that? Because it appears in society, the well-being lens is becoming more fashionable and acceptable to look at health through that lens.
Yeah, and I think when you think about growth strategies, having said what I've just said about the mental health establishment, there are so many other areas where we could be developing peer support. In New Zealand, we've been talking to the corrections department about it. We've got a proposal in to offer peer zone to people who have benefits, are collecting benefits. It's part of the government's agenda to get people on long-term benefits back into work. You think about all the people in the community who I talked about who are sort of unhappy or languishing or struggling. I think there's enormous potential for peer support in a whole lot of other areas, and I think that's where the growth might be, is more outside the old mental health system, which I think is pretty intractable. I just think it's, I don't have much I certainly don't have a strengths-based approach to the mental health system. I think it's, I think it's too far gone.
One of the areas that comes to mind for me when I think around that is a lot of around mental health in the workplace, different workplace settings, right? So I think that's one of the places that you're seeing that emerge.
Yeah.
And it's happening in Canada too. There's peer support going into the workplace. And I think that started with the veterans, did it?
I think so. There's some, absolutely, there's some work happening there.
And schools and workplaces are the places where people spend most of a lot of their days, running from some sort of trauma. So this is where if we now, I'm not saying that there aren't subgroups within that might want to split off and do their own have their own support groups, but if we think about people who are just have lost well-being for whatever reason, then there's a huge number of people that we could be reaching through peer support, and we could be reaching them as a whole group, or we could be sort of segmenting them off into their particular forms of distress.
Sure.
And when I see the benefits of the drop-in, so the Krasman, it's this little microcosm right now. And of course, we don't do assessments, or we're not concerned around diagnoses and things like that. So we do see that range of folks that may have had a really, hard time in their life, and they find it accessible. And then other folks who do see themselves as survivors of the more traditional system come in as an alternative, or it's another option on the menu, and they're using traditional services as well as the drop-in. One thing I see is that this should be commonplace. This should be mainstream, a physical location where people can come, that is not clinical, that is warm, that's welcoming to anyone. But of course, it would have to be much larger than the Krasman Centre.
So it's really good
neighborhoods, right?
You've got people who aren't necessarily part of that traditional mental health system or haven't been. I think that's really great that they feel there's a place for them at the centre as well.
Yeah, we definitely see that.
Yeah.
Well, it's one good example of what could be in many other places by the sounds of it. So, okay, well, we'll end it there, and thank you very much for those final thoughts after a wonderful day of discussion and sharing, led by yourself, Mary. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.